Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. This is your host, Howard Fox. The Outdoor Adventure Series celebrates individuals and families, businesses, and organizations that seek out and promote the exploration, stewardship, and enjoyment of the great outdoors. Our guest today is Rod Ciardullo. Rod is the founder and chief exercise officer at RCX Mountain Bike Adventures. For over 20 years, he has been creating and implementing custom personalized fitness programs for busy professionals that have helped them transform their lives. And today he is out in beautiful Sedona, Arizona, taking it up a couple notches by crafting outdoor adventures and experiences around mountain biking. Rod, it's a pleasure to have you on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Welcome.
Hey, Howard. Great to be with you. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I'm so appreciative of our friend, Elaine Williams. I love Elaine. She was on the show, on our other podcast, Success Insight, where we have a career series, and we were talking about camera confidence as you were interviewing for jobs and talking about that. And she goes, there's this guy I need to introduce you to. He's really cool. He does mountain biking, and he's out in Arizona. So here you are. So again, welcome. Before we get into this mountain biking adventures, and by the way, I was going to have on the introduction, he's the CEO, but everybody would then go and think Chief Executive Officer. But I love your play on that acronym, Chief Exercise Officer. That's fantastic. Tell us a little bit about your background. Now, you got a little bit, I mean, the name Ciardullo, I mean, I'm thinking that's not native Arizona. So where are you from originally?
I am from Long Island, New York. My grandparents all came over on the boat, although technically one grandmother was born here in New York and went back when she was 3 years old and came back when she was about 18. So she spoke with broken English, as many of my grandparents did. And so I'm originally from Long Island, Italian-American from Long Island.
Fantastic. And I think I was just kind of kidding before we hit the record, and now you're making me hungry and rethinking what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. But so thanks for that. So in Long Island, growing up, how'd you get involved with just exercise and physical fitness? What was the path to that?
I was always a skinny kid, and I wanted to go to the gym, but I was intimidated back in 11th and 12th grade. And then when I went away to college, I started doing some working out in my dorm room. And one guy I became friends with said one day that he's going to the gym. This is about after a month after I had started school my freshman year. And so I went with him, and he showed me all around. We started working out, and I was instantly hooked. And as a skinny kid, you see gains right away. So I started seeing any muscle I was building was evident. And there's nothing, I always say to clients now, even there's nothing like a little bit of success to breed motivation. So when I started seeing some success, that's all I needed for motivation. And I got hooked. And down the road, people say, hey, I joined a gym. Would you come with me and show me how to use the equipment? I mean, yeah, sure. And I would do that. And people would always say, you should become a fitness trainer. And eventually I did. And it was a kind of like a part-time gig. And it just started growing and growing. And I decided, you know what, this is a legitimate business. And that's how I got into the fitness realm.
Okay. Now, when you were going to school, where'd you go by?
RIT in Rochester.
RIT in Rochester. So IT, I'm thinking, is Institute of Technology.
Yep.
So were you going to be like an engineer or technology guru?
Good question. Actually, they have a really good hotel restaurant program.
Okay. Wow. I would not have thought that. But so was that part of your profession as you were coming out of school, or did you really kind of make that transition into physical fitness early on?
Well, my degree was a business degree with a specialization in hotel restaurant management, and I ended up getting into commercial real estate, and that's where I originally started my career, and was there. We had a bunch of 20-something-year-olds all working together in a relatively new firm. The guys who were 35 were like, whoa, that guy's 35? And they were old. And
it's like old timers.
Yeah, so we'd all go like to happy hour, like, hey, happy hour Thursday night. And then like I'd go and I just like stop in and I'm like, no, I'm not drinking because I have to go to the gym. Like, what do you mean you go to the gym? Come on, hang out, have a beer. And that was just my every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I was going to the gym after work.
All right. Well, I definitely admire that. Physical fitness for me, consistent, has always been an issue. And as you can tell from the camera, you're still a thin guy. You probably have to run around in the shower to get wet. Me, I just stand there and I get wet. I could stand to lose a little bit of pounds and put on a little bit more muscle. I'm sure there's muscle here somewhere. How'd you then begin this transition into the fitness? And I'm really curious how you all of a sudden ended up out in Sedona in Arizona.
Yeah.
Taking folks out on mountain bike adventures.
Yeah. So from the fitness world, as a kid, I always loved, we'd get out on our bikes. And I mean, that was our freedom. You get on the bike and you just take off, and our folks didn't know where we're going. Our folks think we're at our neighbor's house, and our neighbor's parents think that he's at our house and we're off somewhere else. You know, we're just cruising the neighborhood and even going into other neighborhoods. And so I always loved biking, and we would go into the woods and just ride around. It was really no such thing as mountain biking back then. I'm showing my age a little bit here, but when mountain biking came around, I started seeing a mountain biking trail, and I'm like, I got to do that. And my brother's girlfriend came to me in 1993 and said, I'm getting Tommy a mountain bike for Christmas. I go, you got to be kidding me. I've been thinking about getting one. I'm like, all right, then I'm definitely going to get one. So we got two matching bikes, and he got surprised with his on Christmas Day. And we went out on December 26th and we went riding, and he was a dedicated mountain biker for about, I don't know, maybe 4 months. And his bike still looks new to this day. And I just kept getting more and more and more into it. And up to the point where here I am, like you ask, in Sedona, living in one of the most amazing regions, one of the most amazing towns for mountain biking in the country.
Yeah, I have to admit, right after you and I had our discovery call, I immediately went on the internet to see how much rentals or starter homes condos were in Sedona. So I want you to know that, by the way.
All right. I'm looking forward to moving out, and I'm ready for you.
All right. So I am curious, when you were going out riding with your friends, now, when I did that, the word Schwinn was like, that's all you heard. So what were you riding with your friends?
Well, are we talking when I was a kid or back when I first started mountain biking?
When you were when you were a kid.
I had a Schwinn. I always looked at the chopper with envy. There was a couple of, like, there was a Stingray and a chopper, and I didn't quite have that bike. Mine was a little bit different, but it was pretty cool. It didn't really have like a banana seat and all that stuff. But it was, I was the Evel Knievel of the neighborhood. And Evel Knievel was my idol. And I'd be jumping over anything I could. Me and my buddy Drew, we set up paint cans. Drew Cunningham, if he's out there, he's living down south right now. But we set up paint cans, lined him up in his driveway, on his side, and we would jump and we'd add more and more paint cans till finally he landed on the last one and it exploded all over the driveway. Okay, now I think we got to clean up a little bit before your parents get home, or we're going to be in deep trouble.
I'll bet his parents were none too happy about that. Now, are you still in touch with?
Vaguely, I haven't spoken to him in a while, but he was my neighbor, my childhood pal in elementary school.
Yeah, I didn't tell you this when we were doing the discovery call, Rod. I am an opportunistic podcaster, so if I can get a photograph or something to add to the webpage when we post this episode. So my ask was going to be, hey, if you got a photo of you with that little Schwinn Stingray or the chopper.
Yeah, me in the air in his driveway.
All right.
Well, I'm going to have to find it for you.
So I want a copy of it. Just scan it. However you do it, we're going to put it on the webpage. So your brother's girlfriend says, hey, I'm going to buy him a mountain bike. What was that mountain bike? Let's call out that brand.
I've been back since 2. Remember very well. Back then, most bikes were rigids. It was really high end to have a front fork. And I don't think a full suspension bike even really existed yet. So
when you got out to Sedona, when your brother and you got the bikes, were you still out east or had you made the trek out to Arizona?
No, I was still on Long Island
Okay.
back then. I was on Long Island. I'd only been in Sedona. I was here last year. I came out unusually last winter. Was when I
Oh,
first came out.
okay. So that sounds like a COVID kind of story where
Yes,
something, okay,
huge Calvin story.
I recognize that because how I ended up in Arizona was kind of like a COVID story as
Yeah.
well. How did you decide I'm going to come out to Sedona? I mean, and then get into this world of mountain biking and these experience adventures.
Yeah. Well, I'd been in Sedona once and years ago, and it was magnificent, and kept seeing how the mountain biking had been growing and growing as far as the amount of trails being built. And so it was on my radar, and I guess I'll reveal my age at 60 for my 60th birthday. Because of COVID, I wasn't gonna have a party, which I usually don't. But I was thinking, you know what, 60, let's just do something fun. But no one was having parties then. It was December of 2020, and I said, you know what, last minute I said, you know what, I'm gonna go to Phoenix, bring my road bike, and do some riding over there. Well, once I get to Phoenix, I'm like, you know what, if I'm gonna be in Phoenix, I should probably shoot up to Sedona for a day and go mountain biking. And then as I'm packing to come to Sedona from Phoenix, I'm like, you know what? I'm probably not going to leave once I get there. So I packed some extra stuff. So I took some of the stuff. I was like, you know, pack stuff, bring it to Phoenix. I take some of that stuff and bring it to Sedona. And so I had 2 hotel rooms at the same time, Phoenix and Sedona. And I had rented a bike ahead of time that I was picking up in Sedona, which is really easy to do, by the way. The shops are great here as far as rentals. And I picked up the bike, and a couple of things happened. One, I realized that 52 degrees in Sedona is really about like 62, 64 degrees in New York because of the lack of humidity and the stronger sun. Winters in Sedona, I'm like, wow, this weather is like perfect for outdoor activity. Secondly, I was on the bike for about 10 minutes. I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I'm leaving today. I'm definitely staying for a second day of riding in Sedona. So I immediately, when I called the shop and said, hey, listen, can I have this bike for tomorrow too? And they said, yeah, no problem. So I came back from that trip. And 5 days later, I'm in New York, and it's a cold, miserable day, and it's during COVID, and I'm feeling isolated. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm working remotely. I could be anywhere right now. Why don't I go to Sedona? And that a light bulb went off at that moment. And I think it was 11 days later, I had pulled into Sedona with my Airbnb all lined up for 3 months and 2 bikes on the car. And here I am, and the rest is history.
That is fantastic. I love that story. And mine had a work element to it, but we're not going to go into my story. But I love the fact that you did that. And the work that you were doing, was it the fitness, or was that still the hospitality or the real estate?
I was strictly in fitness. I've been in the fitness business for 20 plus years. And yeah, so I was working independently as a fitness trainer in my own business, working in Manhattan. Mm-hmm. And when COVID hit, 15 days to stop the spread. And I thought, okay, you know what? I'm going away in a week. So I got a week to kind of really get myself organized. I go away for a week. I come back and everything gets back to normal. That was my big plan. Well, here we are 2+ years later, and we're still not back to normal. So yeah, okay. So that's probably was before COVID hit.
Okay. How did this idea then, you're in Sedona, and I'm thinking about Sedona. I was there once and many years ago, so I definitely have to get back down there. So you're in Sedona. When did you begin to explore this idea of the RCX Mountain Bike Adventures? How did that start to kind of percolate and you make this shift?
Once I got here, back in January 2021, I realized that it's really underutilized. There's not a lot of offerings. I started looking around, and I found trips like in the summer and late spring, early fall, where you do maybe 4 days of biking, but you're camping. And I was like, there wasn't a lot of that offered either. And I was like, the kind of guys like, that I'd have come from New York and come out here and ride with me, they don't want to camp. They're going to want to be in a hotel. So I just started thinking, you know what, this would be, a really great opportunity. I just see a need. And the mountain biking is so magnificent. And it's really actually underutilized here because it's not as booming as it should be as far as the number of bike shops and the number of mountain bikers here. There's activity, but nowhere near the potential or the popularity that it could have here that maybe some other places like Bentonville, Arkansas have.
Okay. Now, back in Chicago, I had a mountain bike and then I had a cross bike. I lived right off of Lake Michigan, so I had the bike, the whole Lakeshore Drive Trail. Mind you, my bike was a wonderful piece of artwork. All right. So let's say I was in Sedona. I'm thinking I'm probably not your ideal client because I'd want to work my way up to some of the places you go. But how did you begin to kind of reach out to your ideal client to start to craft these adventures for them? Because again, I'm not your ideal client because I'm a novice at this, but
Okay.
You're not. So how are you crafting this ideal client experience?
Okay, so first off, the ideal client is someone who's a strong intermediate, comfortable, solid intermediate to an advanced rider. And the way I'm putting myself out to them is a lot of Facebook pages. I started thinking like, you know what, I belong to some mountain bike groups in New York, which is a Long Island organization, and Rochester Mountain Bike Association. So I say, let me just start marketing to them, reaching out to the people through those two clubs' Facebook pages and sharing what I'm offering. The trips are really geared to 8 to maybe 12 people, but keeping it to about 8 people. So it's not like I needed to really mass market this. It's kind of intimate. I thought it'd be really cool to get people from those clubs that would ride in the areas that I was always riding in and kind of create some camaraderie between like the Long Island and the metropolitan New York guys. And then they could start saying, hey, come up and ride after they have the experience here in Sedona. Like, hey, come. All right. You're creating like pals now because, eating, drinking, and sleeping mountain biking together in Sedona. And then you go back home like, hey, listen, you guys got to come up to Westchester, you Long Islanders. We've got some much better terrain up here. And then you're getting these people riding together. So I just thought it'd be a real natural fit just to reach out to the people who are in the clubs that I originally belonged to. And from there, I've kind of broadened it out to other groups just to expand it more and open up my market more.
Okay. So let's say you get a group that they're coming out to visit. What types of questions are you asking them to create this experience that is going to be right for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a questionnaire that's fairly extensive that really gives me an idea of who they are, what kind of riding they do, what kind of shape they're in cardiovascularly, if they can handle a 2.5-hour ride on challenging terrain. And so some questions would be, where do you ride now? What's your favorite trail where you ride now? And I have an app called Trail Forks, which will show me all the trails all over the country. So even if this person is somewhere where I've never ridden before, I can go and look and say, okay, they say they're comfortable on these are their 3 favorite trails. And I can see how those trails are rated and read about those trails. So I get an idea of what kind of rider they are. So they could kind of like fudge it and tell me, yeah, I'm solid intermediate. But if they're not riding solid intermediate trails, I'm going to know it. So that's a great way of getting some idea of how they ride is how many days a week they ride, how long each ride is, and the kind of terrain. And I ask some specific questions like, do you prefer hilly terrain? Do you prefer technical terrain, which technical means like rocks and roots and things like that, as opposed to like smooth dirt. So it's kind of the difference between mogul skiing and skiing groomed trails.
Right.
So, and Sedona is more like moguls. If you're gonna use the skiing analogy, there's a lot of moguls in Sedona.
Okay.
So there's a lot of questions I'll ask to really get an idea of who they are, because I want people to be in the right group and on the right ride. It's no fun if you're an expert rider who likes to launch off of big jumps and that kind of riding, you're probably a little bit disappointed. And if you're a novice who can't keep up, you're going to feel a lot of pressure and you feel overwhelmed. You're not going to have fun either. So it's my job to make sure I put people in the right group and then curate the terrain, the trails that we do to match their abilities.
Okay. And this app, I'd love to be able to put a link back to it in our show notes. And how many trails are you currently working on with guests? I mean, you said it's, Sedona, there's trails, but it's kind of it's not a sport that's really not a lot of people doing it. So it seems like there's lots of opportunities. Are there new trails being created? Are there specific trails that you would take people on, or do you have your kind of your go-tos? How does that work for you?
Yeah. So the Forest Service and the other organizations that create the trails, I think these people are invisible because I never see them, but the work they do is magnificent. I mean, the trails here are probably the best maintained, and the signage is the best signage I've ever seen in a trail system. It's just really terrific. And answering the question of where we would go, there are things that people know about that are just like, if you're an avid mountain biker and you've read about Sedona, then you've heard about Highline and Hangover and the Hogs. There's different trails in the Hogs, Hogwash, High on the Hog, and a couple of others, Pigtail. So they're like the trails, but I don't start with those. We build up. So we start with, I'll give you an example. On the last trip we did, the second day, had a guy named Morgan who's from New York, and he is the bronze medalist in the mountain biking cross-country world championships for 60 and over age group.
Okay.
He's 61 years old. And after the second day, he goes, and he's a very understated guy, and he goes, I would say that was the most spectacular day of riding I've ever done. This is a guy who was ridden all over the world. I was like, wow, that's a big statement coming from you. I said, however, I would hold that thought because tomorrow is going to be even more magnificent. And sure enough, he said the same thing the next day. So there's no shortage of trails. They're amazing here. The scenery, the trail systems, the way they're constructed is just top notch. And there's so many trails to choose from that someone who's going to just try to come here on their own, they may be overwhelmed, not knowing where I should really go. And so that's one thing that I pride myself on, is like I can create a package of rides that just get better and better each day and build you up to the point where we don't blow you out the first day. You have an amazing ride the first day, but every day gets better than the last.
When you describe this experience from this mountain biking champion, 60 or some years old, and like, wow, you and I are in the same age range, so I'm really feeling envious right now, but that's my issue.
We're going to give you the bronze medalist in 2023.
All right. I love it. Let's talk about the experience that they are having from this type of adventure. And this guy, I mean, to hear him say, wow, that was great, you to come back and say, hold that thought. What are some of the other experiences that people are getting out of this, and perhaps they're sharing with you, they're sharing on their social media? Because I imagine you go out with these guys, women, you're all of a sudden our Facebook page, your Facebook friends, your Instagram friends. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the other statements of experience that you're hearing from these folks?
Well, I claimed it because I had a similar experience in Italy, road cycling. I went for 2 weeks, and the first week we all lived together, and we were from all different countries: Australia, Colombia, Mexico, Canada, United States. And yet we all lived in the same house, and we all became like a tight-knit group. Like we were teammates. And then the second week we went and it was a combination tour/race. You were touring for most of the day, but there would be one major climb in the Dolomites where you would be racing, and you're racing against everybody. So it was a nice blend of racing and riding. And I came back and I wanted to replicate that with these Sedona trips, that not only having amazing experiences biking, but that you're also eating, drinking, sleeping, mountain biking with a group where you sit around having conversations that you wouldn't have with a non-mountain biker. And you guys would be riveted in this conversation about should I go oval chainring or should I go round? And what your derailleur and what you got, what's your cog stand on the back, and things that people don't even know what you're talking about that would keep these guys riveted all day, all night long talking, but also coming back and talking about the ride and talking about the trails you did and the experience and the camaraderie of it, of supporting each other. And okay, you tried to clean that section, but you dabbed, which means your foot came down twice, but then you went back, and the way you did it that second time, it's amazing how you pulled that off, and you're there rooting for each other, and you're creating a tight bond that is unique. It's kind of like teammates in a sport, playing football or baseball. You spend so much time together, and you're kind of like in battle together, that it creates a very strong bond. And that's what people take away from these kind of trips, is that it was not only an amazing experience mountain biking terrain, unique to anything they've ever ridden before, but it's also the connection they made with the people they were with.
Okay. Very good. I mean, it sounds phenomenal. And on the Outdoor Adventure series, we've had hikers hiking in the mountains in Colorado. We've had through hikers on the Appalachian Trail, the John Muir Trail, Pacific Crest Trail. And sometimes you're wowed and you walk around the bend and all of a sudden you're wowed again. And then you have the camaraderie that takes place at the campground where you're all camping that night. And again, different sport, different settings, but the story, everybody's coming away with a story and an experience. And I love that. I love that. Now you have a couple of events coming up and would love to, let's get that out to our listeners, and maybe they'll say, hey, I heard it on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast, so I'm in, man. What are some of those events that are coming up for you?
Sounds good. We have May 13th and May 20th. These are 4-day trips. You come into Sedona on a Friday. You leave on Tuesday. We ride, depending on when you come in, we've got Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, 3 full days of riding. But if anyone gets in early enough, we can do a easy ride on Friday, keep it short and light, coming off a plane and all that. But just get them out there and get to kind of whet their appetite a bit. And then the same thing on Tuesday. If people are leaving later on, then we can also squeeze in a ride on Tuesday morning as well. So okay. It could be anywhere from 3 to 5 days of riding, but figure about 4 days of riding is what's planned.
Fantastic. Well, we'll kind of carve out the snippet of this audio and get it up on our website and share it. Now,
yeah, can I add one thing about that too, Howard?
Please do.
So it also includes the hotel, right? Okay. So we have a really nice hotel that's super close. It's about a 4 or 5 minute bike ride to some of the best mountain bike trails in Sedona. So we will have transportation to get around Sedona, but we don't even need it for most of the rides. And also, you got breakfast and dinner on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday are included also. And I kind of like to cook, but we're going to be out mountain biking. We don't want to be cooking, so we're going out to some nice restaurants for breakfast and dinner.
I love it.
So it's a little more upscale. Like we talked about the camping thing. It's far from camping and camping food. We're going out to some nice restaurants, and we're staying in a nice hotel. Got 2 queen-size beds in each room, so you can either be in a double or you can go solo, which we call the Lone Wolf Special.
I love it. Yeah, I would probably be the Lone Wolf. I am curious, for the folks that are going to come out to this event and they want to attend, what do they need to prepare for to be out there doing this? I mean, let's just say, imagine that they either have their bikes or they know they're going to rent a local bike.
Right.
What else do they need? Is there like a top 10 list of things they need to have with them when they come out to go out on this adventure with you?
Yeah, I think aside from everything that a mountain biker would normally know to bring with them, I guess if they don't know what to bring, then that's a red flag.
Okay.
But I would say be prepared. Sedona can be cool in the morning and hot during the middle of the day. So, we could go out and it may be 50 degrees when we start and 75 when we're done. So that's a unique aspect where you don't really get those kind of major, massive shifts in maybe the Northeast. So having layers that you can easily add and take off, and not big heavy layers, but thin layers, just dressing properly. And hydration packs. Some people are like camels. They just bring like one little bottle of water and they go out and ride for 2 hours. But Sedona with the dry heat, you probably need more fluids than you would normally have, like maybe in the Northeast. So I haven't really found that to be the case for myself yet. We're in towards the end of April, and the weather has been about in 70 to maybe 80 degrees. It's usually been in the 70s here as a high so far. So it's been really comfortable. And in the end of May, it's going to probably be in the 50s in the morning and maybe 80 degrees, maybe 85 as a high in the afternoon. So maybe they'll need a little bit more water than normal.
Okay. Fair enough. Before we head out, I definitely want to provide the links back to the website. Any final, what we would call insight to go that you would like to share with our listeners regarding the overall experience? Now, maybe there's a book they should go out and buy, or there's a quote, there's an article, but what kind of insight would you like to leave with our listeners?
Oh, that's a great question. There's something I always tell my fitness clients as a way to motivate them, and that is sign up for something bigger than you. Meaning sign up for something bigger than what you're normally used to doing. If you go out and you run a 5K like every weekend, then go out and sign up for like a 10K or a half marathon, something that you can't really handle right now, but you're going to train for so that you'll be ready for it when it comes. So you're signing for something 3 months down the road or a month down the road, and you're preparing for it. So it's always exciting to sign up for something that motivates you to get out there and to push yourself a little bit harder. I like to say, it gets you up in the morning. It's like, okay, if you say I'm going to lose 10 pounds within the next 3 months, then you can have ice cream today and tomorrow. It's no big deal. But if your goal is to lose 2 pounds this week, then you can't have that ice cream. That ice cream is really going to hinder my success. So creating something that's big and that's not too long-term is a great way of inspiring and motivating you and getting you out of bed in the morning.
Very good. Well, we appreciate that, and I know our listeners will appreciate that insight from you, Rod. Before we head out, if our listeners would like to learn more about you and your work, where are the best places for them to go?
Probably the best, they could send me an email directly. You can go to the RCX Mountain Biking and Adventure Facebook page. There's a lot there. My website, it doesn't have a lot of, my YouTube channel, Rod 1216, I believe it is. I really should know this, but I'll send you the link to that. But my YouTube page is a good resource. It's got a lot of the videos from Sedona, showing a lot of different trails, and some of it is kind of like raw, uncut, but it just shows you the great diversity of the trails here and the beauty of the scenery in Sedona. And I make sure I'll send you a link to that too. And my website is rcxfitness.com, and email is rod@rcxfitness.com.
Sounds like a plan. Well, we'll provide obviously the links to the Facebook page, the YouTube, which you'll send us, and the website. And I know you're on Instagram as well. So whatever way people can find you, that's the best way, because you want to be found. And really, it sounds like you're onto something there in Sedona. I'm just up the road, so I may have to go by myself in a couple lighter trails a couple times, but my goal would be to be able to go out on one of your adventures. So
you're welcome anytime. I'd be happy to take you out. You get a VIP, get some VIP treatment, and you'd have a great time. My YouTube channel is Rod C1216.
Okay.
C1216.
Sounds like a plan. Well, listen, Rod, thank you so much for joining us on the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. A great episode. And yeah, you are actually, I think, our first mountain biker. So one of my other guests does mountain biking adventures and then some, but I love the fact you're crafting these adventure and experiences for individuals. I know Sedona is a beautiful place, and yeah, definitely looking forward to crossing paths with you someday. Listen, stay on the call. We're going to do a quick close, and you and I can have a final chat. But again, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks so much, Howard. It's been a pleasure. Really appreciate it.
All right. Okay, folks, we have just been chatting with Rod Ciardullo. He is the Chief Experience Officer at RCX Mountain Bike Adventures. What a wonderful story today, and just kind of insights from Rod of how he, went from crafting trails with his friends in the woods of Long Island on the Schwinn Chopper or the Stingray, and now he's out in Sedona making a new life for himself and really building on his fitness background to craft outdoor adventures on mountain bikes in the trails around Sedona. What a wonderful career. And just if you're into mountain biking, well, this is definitely a place you're going to want to go out and visit. We're going to provide all the backlinks to Rod's social sites as Facebook, YouTube, and also the website. Now, we will also provide some information regarding his two trips that are planned for May 13th and May 20th. So we'll get those up. Or actually, by the time you listen to this episode, we will have had those little snippets up and available. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Do let us know, like it, share it, comment on it. If you've reached out to Rod and you went on one of his adventures, let us know that as well. You can find us on the Outdoor Adventure Series website, outdooradventureseries.com. You can also find us on LinkedIn and Facebook, Outdoor Adventure Series pages, as well as the major podcasting platforms, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, Audible. Heck, we're everywhere. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a fantastic day. It is Friday here in Las Vegas and everywhere for that matter, unless you're across the international date line. But go have a great weekend, whether you are mountain biking, hiking, or just walking around the neighborhood. Take care of yourselves and enjoy, and take care of your neighbors as well. And we will see you on a future episode of the Outdoor Adventure Series podcast. Take care now.